no matter how much I did, I never felt that satisfaction, that feeling of, okay, now that we hit this revenue goal, now that we're making more money than we've ever even thought we would make in our entire life, let alone being in our early 20s, now surely we'll feel successful, right?
If you are the partner that is not in a state of burnout and you're watching your partner who is, it's a pretty tough place to be because from my perspective, what I was watching was somebody who had such a light, who motivated others so much, who was so positive all the time, suddenly take this dark turn.
I was surprised that during the season of my life, when I went to a doctor's office, they did say like, hey, Kyle, you have Today, specifically, what we're going to do is we are going to be talking about some of the darkness that happens in the shadows of growing successful businesses. Yeah. Because if you're listening to this, most likely you are successful. Most likely, to some degree, you have a business that has produced revenue for you, and you have probably a pretty dang good relationship.
Yeah.
Pretty much everybody who listens to us falls in that category. But if we're all honest with ourselves, unless you live a picture perfect life that is just as perfect as it looks on Instagram, there's some stuff that we all deal with behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Am I right? And today specifically, what we're going to be doing is we're going to just pull back the curtain and talk about some of the stuff that maybe doesn't get talked about on Instagram enough. You're not going to see it on, a highlight reel. You're not going to see it talked about in a lot of different places, but it's the real stuff. Yeah. The real stuff that happens behind the scenes. Today, specifically, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about our journey of overcoming things like massive burnout after a lot of success in business. We've also experienced, I would call it like an identity crisis.
Yeah.
Specifically, which we'll dive into. And all of the other kind of things that can show up when you are rapidly scaling a business and trying to manage the complexity of it all while being in a relationship with somebody at the same time. And we're just going to dive right into it.
So the first topic, let's do that.
Yeah.
You ready?
Hit me.
All right.
Hit me.
The first topic up for discussion today is, let's start with.
These are all fun topics. So it doesn't matter which one you start with. They're all just going to be painful.
I think let's start with the burnout because I think that'll naturally lead to the other ones. So what did it look like for you to experience burnout specifically, and how does that apply to other entrepreneurs?
Can I answer the second part first?
Yes. Yeah.
What happens is, at least for me, and I guess I don't want to speak for every entrepreneur, but pretty much every entrepreneur I've met, what happens is that our focus gets away from the initial vision and it gets put on the responsibilities and the tasks and the day-to-day and all of the stuff that we don't like doing. And we feel like we're caged and we're stuck in the business that was supposed to make us free. So my experience with burnout was, a few years ago. For those that don't know, my background is in digital marketing. So I had the opportunity to be behind the scenes for some pretty amazing, successful companies. And by the time I was 25 years old, I was a fractional CMO for a tech company. And I received so much success so quickly because not only was my own business successful, I was able to step into this tech company. And in the first 30 days of working with them, we were able to generate one of the highest revenue months in company history. We went just over $1.1 million in revenue. And I was like, okay, this is cool. Now I'm stepping into a leadership position. I'm not just using digital marketing strategies to grow businesses anymore. I am now leading a team of people, some of which are older than me. Some, a lot of them were older than me. And I got to see the fruits of what it looked like to step into a leadership role. And that was just one of many, many highlights in my life where I just had success after success after success. And for those listening, unfortunately, the path to success does not look like a straight line. So what was happening is I was, just working nonstop, helping these companies make so much money. And this tech company was one example of many. I was coaching copywriters for different marketing agencies. I was doing, funnel building jobs on the side. I was just doing so much and making all of these companies that I was working with so much money and working so much. And around that time was when you and I were getting ready to get married. Yeah. So there was so much happening. And yet, no matter how much I did, I never felt that satisfaction, that feeling of, okay, now that we hit this revenue goal, now that we're making more money than we've ever even thought we would make in our entire life, let alone being in our early 20s, now surely we'll feel successful, right?
Yeah.
So what happened was then as we progressed, we got married, and I thought, okay, money isn't satisfying. Surely when we get married, we'll feel satisfied, right? But then we get married, and although it was amazing and we felt like it was totally meant to be and it was divine ordained, all that stuff. Once we got married, we also, or at least I felt, oh my gosh, I still didn't get that emotional release that I was going for. Yeah. And over the years, what has happened is I've stacked up responsibilities, I've stacked up roles, I've been chasing all of these different things. And yet, no matter what I did, there was never a feeling of satisfaction. And that ended up turning into what I now classify as burnout.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget the day that basically told me, okay, yeah, Kyle, you have a problem. And I think you remember this day too. This day was right after we just got married.
Yeah.
And we kind of plunged into our anti-honeymoon phase, if you remember.
Yes.
And while we were trying to navigate the complexities of being an entrepreneur couple with zero playbook and nobody else talking about it, while that was happening, I was still also leading teams and building companies and creating an online course on the side. we were just working so much. Our entire life was consumed with business.
I know exactly where you're going with this.
Yes. The day that changed everything for the worst was a Sunday. Because you remember this day?
Yep.
I remember sitting in bed with you, just chilling, nothing crazy. And realizing 5 p.m. on a Sunday, as we're sitting there, that I had to go back in my office and shoot a video in order to release a course module the next day. Yeah. And that feeling was so dreadful. You know how people talk about the Sunday scaries?
Yeah.
This was like Sunday scaries for me on steroids, because I'm like, I feel like I am on a train. It is going so fast and I can't stop it. I don't have the energy to keep going, but somehow, some way I have to pull it within myself to try and put on a show and try to perform and create this amazing Facebook ad training so we could release it to all of our clients tomorrow for this online course that I created. And it was so bad that, just for everybody's context, Ariel and I aren't we're not like big drinkers or anything. Like, we'll have like occasional glasses of wine here and there. But the moment that told me, okay, we have a problem, was the moment that I had to go to the kitchen and find this tequila that somebody bought us and just pour myself shots of tequila that I was taking at 5 p.m. on a Sunday just to get through recording an online course module for a Facebook ad training. That was the first sign, holy crap, we're heading towards burnout.
Yeah.
Now, if I just fast forward over, the past several years, this has continuously grown and grown and grown. Because when we're younger, we're not given a manual for life. Yeah. We're not told, okay, if you experience burnout in business and you achieve everything you've ever wanted, but you're not quite satisfied yet, here's what to do.
Yeah.
Nobody talks about that.
And a lot of people don't even know what burnout actually is or looks like. And a lot of people aren't really sure how to categorize whether what they're going through actually is burnout.
Right.
So,
well, I didn't know how to categorize it
at the time. Yeah.
The only first sign I saw was a tequila shot in my hand, because that is not me.
Yeah.
So how did you feel when you saw that? Me doing that?
Very shocked.
I would be too.
I think I walked into your office and I was like, what are you doing?
Yeah. Living life, baby. Living life. So instead of like reading the signs and maybe slowing down, maybe taking time to reflect, I just put the foot on the gas pedal even more. Yeah. So then we just created more success. Since the tequila moment, we kept just going down the same route in different ways. So I would think to myself, okay, once we hit a certain revenue milestone, then I can take some more time off. I could start prioritizing my body. I could start prioritizing my mind.
Once I get here, then.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the feeling. And it created just more and more and more burnout. Shocker. Now, this might seem like common sense to many people listening, but to me, it was not common sense. And I think for many highly driven creative entrepreneurs, this isn't common sense, because we are hardwired to achieve and to do everything that is required in order to hit the next goal.
Yeah.
And for all intents and purposes, it's a good thing, right?
Yeah. There's a fine line, though, between burnout and just like hard working work ethic, right?
Yeah. Yeah. But I would say that for me, the difference was, and it became very apparent over the next several years from this moment, the difference was, if you feel like you are dragged to your work every single day and that you are looking at your to-do list going, man, I absolutely hate this, that can be normal for a season, to your point.
Yeah.
But if that routinely happens over and over, and here's the big part, and you see no way out, that's what creates burnout. So what I've discovered, and maybe this is helpful for somebody listening, is that if you're experiencing burnout, there's so many different signs and symptoms and things that you could do to really alleviate that. And I could talk about what I've done that's really helped. But I would say that if we just had to boil it down to the root of the root of the root, the main cause for burnout is a lack of a compelling future. It's the same root for depression.
Yeah.
A lot of people who might be listening who experience depression and anxiety, I was surprised that during the season of my life, when I went to a doctor's office, they did say like, hey, Kyle, you have pretty high anxiety. And I basically just ignored them and walked away and changed nothing, as you do, right?
I think you said, no, I don't.
I was like, no, wrong.
Because anxiety is it's a context laden word that some people don't like to associate with. So.
Right. So if anyone's listening and they want a cheat code for alleviating burnout, it's to take time to recreate a compelling future. So, and we could talk about this from a variety of different lenses. Yeah. But for me, it was extremely helpful. Whether you're dealing with depression or burnout, really, they're both symptoms of a very similar thing, which is I am stuck. What I am doing is not going to move me any further. And no matter what I do, it does not matter. That's what creates burnout. So if that is what creates it, then how do we reverse it?
Yeah. So what'd you do?
So for me specifically, what I did is a myriad of different things. Number one, I took my health a lot more seriously. So I actually took time to stop performing and producing and achieving, and embedded time in my week where I can actually process all of the thoughts and actually like answer the question, how do I feel? Because I think in my early 20s, when I was constantly driving forward, I didn't take the time to go like, do I actually care about this?
Yeah.
Does this actually matter? You know?
Yeah.
So I embedded some time throughout the week to process and really like understand how I truly felt about things. That was number one. But number two, working with coaches helped me realize that I lost a vision of the future that was compelling for me. Yeah. So I started creating an idea of what a potential future could look like and how what I'm doing right now can lead to that. So I would say that during that season, it was a wilderness season, but it gave me the opportunity to actually create an idea of what I truly wanted, not just achieving what I needed to achieve because it was going to somehow make me feel successful.
Yeah. Maybe you were going this direction, but do you have like a tangible example of what it looked like for you to create a future to hope for, so to speak? A tangible hack could be, and you're the one that actually taught me this, which is to create a little like straight I did.
That's right. So I mean, like if anyone's listening, they want to like just a quick hack. There's a vision board app that you can download, and you can use it on your phone and make it your screensaver that just simply shows pictures of the future vision that you want to live out in your life. And if you have that as a screensaver on your phone, it will just constantly remind you of why you're doing what you're doing. Yeah. That's one thing. That's that's about as tangible as I get, because the reality of it for me is that I had to change the thought processes in my mind. Yeah. That's the real. I had to change the thought. I had experienced some pretty crazy, I guess you would call it trauma. I guess everything's trauma in a way, but I experienced some traumatic things in business and just where my mind was going, high stress, high anxiety, those types of things. And because I experienced that, I think that what happened was I started believing over time that no matter what I did today, the future that I want is not possible to go after. Yeah. And maybe somebody listening can relate to that. If you ever experience burnout, I want to ask you the question: do you believe that what you want in your life is actually possible? Yeah. Do you believe it? Because if you're anything like me, when I lost faith that what I wanted in my life is actually possible, that's what created burnout. And then as I continued to go through the burnout, thinking there's no way I could burn out. I'm Kyle, Tresch. That's right. That's not me. As I continued to walk forward, that burnout turned into depression, and then that depression turned into apathy. And apathy is a fun one. That's like another layer of depression where now your body is so sick of feeling negative emotions that it just shuts off emotion. Yeah. And then what do? Yeah. the answer to that question is you can either get medication, you could get out of entrepreneurship. Both of those options suck from what I've seen, and at least for me. Or you can do what I've done, which is to create an ideal vision for your life, remind yourself that it's possible, look at all of the evidence of your life prior to that point to remind yourself of how far you've come, and start to train those faith muscles again that got us into entrepreneurship in the first place. I would say that was helpful. Now, once we've done that, I remember it was kind of like, didn't happen overnight, but slowly but surely, year over year, I've actually increased the amount of energy that I feel towards what we do. And now what we do with Couplepreneurs, oh my gosh, like the energy has gone up even more, because now what we're walking in is what we feel is directly tied to our calling in life. So I would say that if anyone's experiencing burnout, that's probably a pretty good hack, don't you think?
Yeah. So before you already kind of talked about like what you did in terms of a solution, but I want to kind of bring in the spouse perspective here, if I can.
No one's stopping you.
Are you going to stop me?
I'm stopping. No.
We usually see where one person is burnt out and the other person isn't.
Yeah.
And just to speak to that a little bit, if you are the partner that is not in a state of burnout and you're watching your partner who is, it's a pretty tough place to be, because from my perspective, what I was watching was somebody who had such a light, who motivated others so much, who was so positive all the time, suddenly take this dark turn where you, no offense, but we're pretty negative. There was a streak of negativity. There was a streak of just like, apathy and not really having that passion or that excitement that you used to have.
Right.
And from my perspective, I remember what the hardest part was being like, I know it's not my job to fix this, but like I felt helpless.
Yeah.
I felt like I couldn't do anything about it.
Yeah.
Because it was like, no matter what I did, no matter how much I pointed to where we were going, it's like, that was my vision. That was what I was trying to create. And that's what I wanted you to be excited about. Yeah. But you needed your own thing to be excited about.
Yeah.
So
I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
Because that kind of leads into another topic we wanted to discuss, which is sometimes in couples who work together, there's a little bit of a role confusion.
Yeah.
And that role confusion, what I mean by that is, if we're both in the business, who takes care of the household?
Yes.
If we are both leading or co-leading, like how does that work from a male or female perspective? Like we had to walk through that a lot. And the reason why I think it's correlated to what you just said is because in my mind, I had this vision of what I wanted to do. And then that vision kind of died, and you were kind of just running the show in my head. Right.
Yeah.
And it made me kind of question, as a man, how am I leading my life? I'm actually not leading my life forward. I am just simply kind of going with the flow right now. And it was terrible. I hated it.
Yeah.
It was awful. Now you did everything that you could during that season, and I don't fault you at all. Like you like, and I'm sure many wives listening to this and partners who are female, if you watch your husband or your male partner go through this, my gosh, like it's hard, because as a guy, if you don't have a purpose to go after and you're with a woman who is extremely strong and has a purpose, it's like a double whammy where you feel like you have absolutely no purpose at all. You have no sense of control. Yeah. And again, that lack of sense of control also feeds into the feeling like there's nothing I can do. And if what I do today does not matter, it will create burnout.
Yeah.
Right.
And believing that you have no control in the future also is, to your point, burnout and depression.
Right. Yeah. So guys, isn't couplepreneurship fun? Now, obviously, couplepreneurship is great.
Yes,
like just as a reminder for anyone who's maybe tuning in for the first time and they're like, whoa, what the heck did we fall into? Couplepreneurship is amazing. Like we've experienced some amazing highs of working together, collaborating together, dreaming together, just sharing life and co-creating things that have impacted so many people around the world. Yeah. There's nothing like that. There's just a shadow side to it. Just like anything, there's a shadow side to this light. So going back to this point of some of like what you were experiencing during this time, watching me go through this and wanting me to have my own purpose. What were some of the developments you saw of me, and like how I, like from your perspective, how I've gotten out of burnout and how I've kind of reignited that sense of purpose?
So it went from a state of exactly that. It was like a lot of apathy is always the word I would use to describe it.
And you hated apathy.
Yeah.
She hates it.
I hate apathy.
I found that out about you. That was helpful.
That is
Ariel
a characteristic that I find very unattractive.
Oh
apparently.
My gosh.
Wouldn't have known that until this, but
it was helpful though.
But yeah, so I mean, Couplepreneurship, greatest personal development journey.
100%.
So with that said, I would say that I saw you go through this state of apathy. And again, that was not you. That was so different.
Right.
But then like, as you started to come out of that, some of the little glimmers of hope I would see were, you were in a state of apathy. There was I always use the words, you seem so unsettled.
Yeah.
You didn't seem settled in who you were and what you were doing. You felt like you were like 1 foot in, 1 foot out of everything that you were doing. You didn't feel like, it didn't look like you were, again, passionately pursuing anything.
Right.
And what I started to see from a developmental standpoint is it took some time, and there was a lot of like peaks and then lows and then peaks and then lows. But the peaks typically looked like, you finding one thing that week that you were excited about, or finding one thing that you could drive home and that you had control over and that you could essentially own, whether it was in the business or something else. Usually it was in the business because that's very goal oriented, but it only came every now and then it just started to, the positives started to outweigh the negatives. The positive experiences started to outweigh the things that you didn't like. You started looking for, you talked about the vision board app. I think even you having that every day, like you dramatically shifted when you created that. Not that it was,
it was crazy how fast it happened.
Not that it was due necessarily to just that vision board app, but I think just constantly putting it back in front of yourself of what you were actually aiming towards was the biggest shift. Because I think what happened is you were so caged by all of the things that you did not want to be doing that you lost the things that you did want to be doing, and you forgot about them, and you forgot where you were actually headed.
And I'm wondering if anyone can relate to that. Does that sound familiar to anybody? Have you ever found yourself in a position where you started your business and you built your business based on a dream, a vision, a goal, and that initial spark, that excitement, and then you've lost it so much and buried it so deep in the responsibilities of your life that what you created that you thought would give you freedom actually gives you bondage. Now, with that being said, being on, for the most part, the other side of this. What I can also say to anybody listening is that just because you are in that position, it doesn't mean you have to stay there. In fact, you already know you can't stay there. We all know that this is not why we created a business.
I think one of the things that we used to say is like, okay, cool. Like everything sucks. Now what?
Now what?
Now what do you do?
That's my advice.
You can't stay there.
Even though we are a coach, I am not the type of coach that is going to sit there and go like, okay, so how does that make you feel? Okay, so what do you do next? I'm the type of guy that goes,
okay, a little bit.
But you know what I like to do more? It's more effective. People will tell me a problem and I'll go, yep, you're right. So now what? Like if you tell me like, oh, I'm really sad, I'm really depressed, I'm really anxious. I'm like, absolutely. So like, is this it? Obviously we know that we need to work through some things, right? So not saying I'm the greatest counselor on earth, but we can move people to action. And here's what moved me to action in this season. It is 100% possible for you to achieve everything that you think you cannot achieve. And that was helpful for me to remember. There is nobody that could put a limit on anyone's potential. Do you believe that? I believe that God is the only one that could ever put a limit on anyone's potential, which means that if somebody listening to this has a dream, has a goal, has something that they believe is their calling in life, and maybe there has been some depression or some apathy or some self-sabotage or some burnout that has happened in their life because the mundane day-to-day doesn't necessarily feel like it's going to lead to that goal, I think maybe one of the biggest shifts that we could give somebody today is the reminder that there's absolutely nothing that's actually keeping them from their success. There's a lot of things we think keeping us from our success, right?
Whether it's time, not having enough time, whether it's, not knowing what to do, whether it's social media algorithms are attacking me,
the economy, the presidency, all of these things. I mean, we could blame all of those things and be stuck, or we can remember that, wait a second, we actually can achieve anything that we want to achieve, especially for those people who are listening, who are like us and people of faith. If God called you to it, he's going to get you through it. That's a cliche, but it's also true. So it's a good reminder. I don't care where you are listening to this. I don't care if your desire is to build a multi-million-dollar, multi-billion-dollar business. Like there's so many people who've done it. So why not you? And I had this post one time on Facebook, and it said something like this. I'm going to butcher it, but we're going to try to make it sound quote worthy. The quote said, The second that somebody puts a limit on your potential or says that it is highly unlikely that you will achieve, and then insert your dream, that person has officially lost the credibility to speak into your life.
Yeah.
Why? Because that person is not God.
Yep.
So yeah, that was super helpful, because again, just to boil this down into very like core principles, like what's the simple solution? The simple solution to solve burnout, depression, anxiety, all of those things is to reignite the belief that the future that you want to create is possible.
Yeah.
And then the tangible behind that is to hyper define what it actually looks like to step into a life that is fulfilling for you. And then by design, create the milestones that allow you to move progressively forward towards that goal. Yeah. And what you actually will find, this is what I found and what you actually touched on, is that the progress itself is actually the point.
I'm so glad that you said that.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that I was going to say, I know we're kind of skipping around a little bit.
We are.
They're all kind of, they're related, right?
Yeah.
You know, when we talk about like overcoming burnout, role confusion, which we're going to get into a little bit more, as well as, you know, like loss of identity, loss of purpose, they're all kind of intertwined.
Yeah.
But specifically with what you just said, I was going to say, I think one of the things that you went through at one point, which was again, very unusual for you because you were always a very goal-oriented person, was you reached this point where like, you didn't even know what it was that you wanted anymore.
Oh my gosh.
And this was the loss of identity piece, the loss of purpose piece. So I think we can kind of like segue into that because like I was trying to help and I was like, well, just like, what do you want? Like, what does the future look like? Like, what do you see?
Yeah.
And for you, you were like, I don't even know anymore. So what would you say to somebody who's maybe in that position where they felt like they always knew what they wanted and then suddenly they feel like they don't have a clue?
Oh my gosh. I'm so glad you asked this question. And I'm curious if anyone listening has ever experienced that, where you started out knowing exactly what you wanted, and then you either A, achieved it and you're like, ooh, this is not fulfilling, or B, you just completely lost sight of it. Yeah. You know, I think that happens to so many entrepreneurs that we have the opportunity to speak into and to help and to walk with. Yeah. Man. Yeah, I remember that day. I remember because we were at a hotel on a mini vacation, just trying to just get away and just process what was happening. And I remember I was so confused. Literally, you probably remember we were at dinner talking about this. Yeah. And I was just so in my head, and you were asking me like, hey, Kyle, like what's wrong? What's going on? And I remember telling you like, not only do I not know what I want to do, I couldn't even tell you my favorite color if I wanted to. That's how messed up my head got.
Yeah. It was like you were so detached from like what you wanted and who you were.
Well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That's a very
shocker.
So one of the beautiful things about being married to Ariel is that she has such a smart understanding of human psychology that the second I say something, she's like, oh, well, that makes sense because here's what's happening. Your brain is doing this because you did this and because you experienced this. It's just like that. So yeah, what you said.
It's not always helpful. Sometimes it comes across a little like clinician like, but
I think it's, trust me, I need that though. It was so helpful. Yeah. So in that moment, I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what my favorite color was because to Ariel's point, I was achieving so much. I was so focused on the external that I didn't take any time whatsoever to check in with and answer the question, what do I actually care about? Who do I actually want to be? How do I actually feel?
And I think you did that for like, at this point, you know, probably 5-6 years, maybe more. I don't know. Yeah. That like, it's just when 5 and 6 years go by and you forgot to check in with what you actually want. Like now you're 5 years down the road and like, you don't remember. You're so detached from it.
This is something a lot of high achieving driven people go through as I've discovered, you know, kind of looking into this and understanding why it's most likely due to the fact that when we were kids, or in our childhood, we were rewarded by a certain level of performance. Yeah. So we assume that more performance equals more love. Yeah. But what we find as we get older and as we achieve success in business is that, yes, the success in business is good in the sense that it gives you provision. It removes any stress and anxiety around finances. You could buy whatever you want without having to think about the price tag. All of that's good.
You can impact people depending on what it is that you do. 100%. I mean, a lot of people are pursuing something that they have the blessing to impact so many people with that they're excited about.
All of those are good.
Yeah.
But if you think that all of those things are going to give you fulfillment and satisfaction, that's where the mistake is. Yeah. Or if you think that it's going to give you love.
Yes.
As my subconscious brain was doing. let me go back to your question, which was
oh gosh, now I didn't even remember.
something to the effect of, if anyone's going through the identity.
If anyone's going through the identity crisis, if they're like, man, I don't even know what I want anymore.
Yes.
What was it like, and how did you get out of it?
Well, what it was like is it sucked. It was depressing.
In short,
I watched so many YouTube videos to try to figure out like different hacks, and I've tested nearly what feels like everything as to like what I actually want. And for me too, there's a spiritual component of, maybe not my will, but thy will be done, going to God and asking, what do you want? What do you have for me? And just in trying to understand and discern, like, is what I'm receiving a voice of God, or is it a voice of my own thoughts? I would say that, man, it's a confusing time. What really, really helped was just so many years of coaching and mindset work to kind of reach a couple conclusions. So can I just go straight to the end of the book?
Yeah. And then I want to share my perspective too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Too long, didn't read. Let's just go to the end of the book, like skip all the middle. Here's the conclusion of the whole matter for me. For me, from a spiritual perspective, it was really helpful to understand that when we are searching for our purpose in life, we have been kind of raised in America to believe that your purpose is something outside of you. It's something that you eventually one day rise to. You discover your purpose for being. And we get this vision in our head of what our purpose looks like. Yeah. And then every single day leading up to that purpose, if we are not living in that vision, we feel like we are outside of our purpose. Mm-hmm. Is that true though? Or is that just a marketing tool that modern spirituality has been using in order to hook people into their organization? As I've discovered, I personally believe it's the latter, where for me specifically, I've discovered from actually studying the Bible from a Christian perspective and asking the question, what is my purpose for being here from this perspective? Yeah. It seems like, biblically speaking, if we had to actually answer the question, what is our purpose? Our purpose is to love God and to love others and to make disciples of Jesus Christ. Yeah. That's it. Love God, love others, make disciples of Jesus. Like, that's why we're here. And that's a pretty broad macro level purpose. But then it raises the question of like, how do we actually do that? Yeah. And I believe that the answer is you as a human being have been given the right and the freedom to choose how you're going to exercise your God-given gifts in order to fulfill that purpose, that macro level. Yeah. So what shifted is that purpose was no longer something I was chasing. Purpose is something that I get to live in every single day. And I've had a lot of coaches to help me with this. Yeah. Your purpose is in the present. So if you're an entrepreneur and you are trying to step into your purpose and you're chasing your purpose and you're chasing this vision of what you perceive your calling to be, that you are delaying your happiness until you achieve, man, maybe this will set you free. Your purpose is in the present. Your purpose is in everything that you do, whether it's being the best mom you are, the best dad that you are, being the best businessman that you are, encouraging somebody that you see at the grocery store, using your God-given gifts, whatever they be, leadership, marketing, finance, business, operations, whatever, to serve other people on a day-to-day basis. And you're doing all of that to the glory of God. You are living your purpose. Yeah. So that took it away from a spiritual sense. Yeah. Like, okay, now I understand that my purpose is not somewhere out there. It could be maximized right this second. Yeah. And then from there, just recognizing that we also have a lot of freedom to get to create and decide what we actually want to create. And when you have to create from this blank spot of apathy, it's difficult. But I look at it like, if you have a blank slate, you get the freedom to choose what you want to put on that slate. Yeah. So does that make sense what I just said? It does.
Yeah. And that was what I was going to say, even from my perspective, is you actually worded it very well. Creating from a state of apathy is very hard, because when you're apathetic, there's nothing that stimulates that emotion that you need to feel like you want to go after something. Right. So you almost have to make, and I think this is what I saw you do, you almost have to make like just the logical choice to put one foot in front of the other.
100%.
It's literally just, I don't know what I want yet, but like, I know this is maybe what I used to want. Yep. Or this is something that I've been intrigued by in the past. So let me just try this, put one foot in front of the other over and over and over again. And then like you finally find yourself there.
Yep.
I'll come back to that. But you finally find yourself like in a point where now you're starting to see what excites you, what doesn't. And now you can start to actually carve the path.
I'm so glad you brought that up.
There was very quickly, there was I don't know if anybody's ever seen those like Christmas claymation shows. Like there was like the Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, The Year Without a Santa Claus. I don't know, but there's a song in one of them where they sing like, you put one foot in front of the other.
I'm so glad you're singing that.
And so that's when I was saying it, I like wanted to sing it. So anyway.
Reminds me of the Jordan Sparks song, One Step at a Time.
One step at a time.
That song rocks.
Yeah.
I don't care what anyone says. Talk about role confusion. I am not confused being a man and a husband and loving Jordan Sparks. I care zero. All right, we're going to get back on track. Yes, I'm so glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
The reason why I love that you brought that up is because I think a lot of people have a fallacy of waiting for a feeling of confidence and certainty before they move forward.
Yes.
And that is absolutely not what we did to build even Couplepreneurs.
Yeah.
So right now, the reason why anybody is listening to us is because we have been very blessed to build a company called Couplepreneurs that, to our knowledge, is the fastest growing and maybe the largest coaching company for entrepreneur couples on the planet.
Yeah.
This vision for this business was not created out of a feeling of absolute certainty or joy. Mm-mm. It was created out of going, okay, what have we been given? What do we have? What would be cool that nobody else has done before? And how can we just take a couple steps forward?
Yeah.
That's it.
And literally at that time, I think it was like, we don't know. At the time, we didn't know if there were a lot of other entrepreneur couples out there.
No
we didn't know very many of them. And we also didn't know, even if there were, if they were going through the same things that we were too. So there was literally just I don't know if this is going to work, but it seems to be like the direction that we're being pulled to. So let's just try it.
And let's just step forward.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember that was so difficult because Couplepreneur specifically, I was weighing that decision of, do we launch this? And the reason why I didn't know if I should launch this because I didn't feel like a crazy amount of like passion for it.
Yeah. And I was going a different direction. Right. I had another business and so did you.
Yeah. But the reason we decided to move forward is because we did feel a spiritual pull towards it. So I will give the big guy credit for that.
Yes.
We did feel that, but we wouldn't say that we were like super passionate in the beginning stages. It was just, okay, based on what we have, the unique dynamic we have, the lessons we've been blessed to have, the gifts that we have, what can we create today?
Yeah.
And then it turned into Couplepreneurs.
Yeah.
Turned into a Facebook group of over, at this point, thousands and thousands of entrepreneur couples.
Yep. And
we had the opportunity to pour into the lives of so many other people because we just decided to take one step at a time.
Yeah.
Or put one foot in front of the other.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you're listening to this right now, maybe there's something that you've been feeling that pull towards, but you're uncertain as to what that actually looks like. And maybe you're uncertain as to if it's the exact calling that you of your future.
Right.
But maybe it's just taking the next step and seeing what happens. And then as you take the steps, you start to get the clarity. You start to get I wouldn't even say certainty, but you start to get the belief that the direction you're going is where you want to be and where you should be.
Yeah. Okay. So if we had to summarize, number one, to eliminate burnout in your life, recreate a vision that you feel excited about, or maybe not fully excited about, but at least a little bit passionate towards.
Yeah.
And remind yourself that vision is possible.
Yeah. I think it's more so having a belief that whatever you do is possible. Whatever you do, whatever you want.
Yes. So that'd be step one. Whatever you want is possible. Yeah. Step two is you just simply take little steps of faith, one after the other. There's a scripture I love that says, the farmer who waits for perfect weather harvest zero crops. Yeah. I mean, it doesn't say that exactly, but that's the Kyle Tresch version, the KST. But the principle is that.
Yeah.
And then as it relates to role confusion, I want to come back to that because I know that just as we were growing and I was stepping more into my purpose and recognizing what purpose is, what it isn't, and actually becoming more whole on the inside, regardless of what happened on the outside. There were also some things we were struggling with, like practically speaking, when it came to like the roles. So I want to hear your perspective on this though.
Yeah.
Because everyone will get to hear from me way too much today. I want them to hear from you because
It's
you're a
good, though.
genius.
I do want to clarify when we say role confusion, there's a couple different ways we can take that. And I want to know which one to start with or which one you have in mind. So there's role confusion around roles within the business, within the household.
Yeah.
There's also role confusion from a perspective more of like what we would consider traditionally male, female. So which direction
do you want to
have
go
in mind?
So the male female I feel can be its own conversation.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm sure that'll dip into this a little bit. But
well, then let's just see where it goes.
All right. Or even roles as in like husband and wife, because going back to what we were talking about earlier.
Listen, go where your heart goes.
Okay. So when I think of role confusion, what I initially think of is more of the division of roles between the business and between the household and between us as a couple.
Sure. Go for it.
And how I think that ties into what we've been talking about as well is like when there is, for example, when you were going through stages of burnout, there was kind of this confusion on my end of like, what am I actually responsible for? And am I overriding Kyle in any of this?
Okay. All right. That's where you took this. I like it.
Yeah.
I like it.
Because I think that's how it ties in.
Well,
yeah.
How did you feel?
So I felt like, okay, I have a vision. Kyle doesn't right now.
Yeah.
Is it me overstepping to set the vision for our family, like as us as a couple?
Right.
Is it me? Like, am I like standing behind him with a whip, like cracking it, just like telling him to move and like do what I need him to do in the business or do what I need him to do in our household in order to take care of our life and our family and our finances, et cetera. And so there was this place where it was like, I didn't know how much to encourage you, push you, and how much I was going to then be responsible for and how much I should expect out of you.
I love that you brought this up because there have been so many coaching conversations that we've had with couples where women are put in that position.
100%. And men sometimes too.
Right.
We've also seen I'm thinking of a couple, for example, that where the woman was going through burnout and the man wanted to he previously was in more of the caretaking household role for a very long time because her career was very successful.
Right.
And they were coming into business together and he was kind of in a place of like, what am I supposed to do when she's going through this? I want to drive the business forward, but she's going through burnout. How do I support her? What do I do?
Yeah.
But we've also seen it flipped, of course, where we see a lot of women go through the position I'm speaking from, which is seeing their husband or their spouse in a place of burnout, high anxiety, high stress, and not knowing how to support them and not knowing like what the future actually looked like. So.
Right. And
I'm saying that I think a lot of people can relate to this from a variety of different perspectives. But at this point, it felt like I didn't know what my role was in our business.
Got it.
As well. And when I say business, I'm talking a little more in reference to the vision of the business and how we continued our division of roles when it felt like you weren't excited about it.
How do we get through that?
Yeah.
Because like thinking back on that, I do remember, man, those are some dark times.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. And so I think selfishly, if I can be honest.
Well, what do we got?
There was a little bit of selfishness of like, I wanted to pull you out of it as fast as I could.
Right.
Because there was a level of like, okay, we have this business, we have this lifestyle that we're now responsible for. We have team members, like we have all these things we're responsible for. I can't do it without you, but I also want to do it without you because I don't want to put that pressure on you. But at the same time, doing it without you then makes you feel like less of a man. Right. That's so dilemma. I'm not 100% sure how we got out of it. I want to maybe tap you in and like hear your perspective on that. But that's how it felt at the moment.
I remember that.
And
I remember
that.
So
what would you say to that?
Well,
Where do we go?
Well, I can imagine. I can only imagine that there's a dichotomy going on in your mind at that time where you were thinking, I want to be the best supportive wife that I could be.
Yeah.
But I know that Kyle has a higher potential than this, but I don't want to nag him. I want to come off as supporting. But like, there's also a reality that we need to like take care of crap.
Yeah, but like we also have like bills to pay, team members, and like you have a role in the business that like you need to be doing. And like this is also flipped too. There's been times just personally where like I've gone through some personal things. Yeah. And like you've been looking at me like, all right, Ariel, like your role of the business needs to get done too. Sure. So like we've both been through this to a degree. But.
We have. And I think that if I had to reverse engineer what we did to get out of that, we did a couple things. Yeah. Again, not to make it too tactical, but just like
you're good at that. And that's why I pass this to you.
Yeah. Some people told me that I remember in our podcast interview with Monica, she said that my brain is like ChatGPT. It like synthesized data.
such a skill of yours.
Thanks. I appreciate that. Well, a skill of yours in this particular case that I think actually contributed to us getting out of that is, as hard as that was for you to do, you actually did walk that line so well of holding the line of what needed to be done objectively and still showing support and love and giving me space to heal subjectively. So I think you actually did that well. And if I had to reverse engineer what we did in that particular case, it would be to go back to you and kind of show how great you handled that situation. Because when I was, I would have days where I was so disoriented and so messed up in my head trying to figure out like who I was and how to identify what the actual next steps are and what I actually loved. While I was doing that, you showed me nothing but love and support. And you, I think, asked yourself the question, what can I control in this season? Yeah. And you just did whatever you can control. Yeah. So I think, honestly, that is the prescription that helped, because when I would start talking to you about these things, you showed me nothing but love, and you constantly reminded me of my potential. Yeah. So you controlled what you can control, and you reminded me of my potential. Yeah. Those two things that you did simultaneously didn't happen overnight, but over time, what happened is just by doing those two things, I slowly but surely got my confidence back. I was able to have the time and space to work through things. And when I come back swinging. You do come back swinging. Mm-hmm. So would you say that that's advice for wives out there to control what they can control and also hold up a standard of what they believe is possible for their husband? Because I think that's what gets rid of the nagging. Yes. Right? Would you agree?
Because I think nagging comes from a place of deficit. Yeah. Of like, you're not doing this. I need these things from you. Whereas instead, what I tried to do, and I'm not saying I was perfect at it, but I think what I tried to do is like hold up a mirror of like, this is your potential. Yes, that was it. Instead. So instead of being like, you're not doing this, but like, here's what you can be. Here's who you are. Here's what I've seen you do in the past. Yep. And so it was in a way, it was still saying you're not doing these things, but not saying it like that. It was very much just being like, hey, this is what I know you're capable of. Now, I will also say, and this actually goes in the case of team members too, and I can say this even from recent experience, that there's also, I think, between us, if one of us is kind of out of the game, is going through something emotionally, needs a break, needs whatever it is, I think something that we've been naturally pretty good at is just communicating that with each other. And I think we've gotten better over the years, but like communicating like, hey, I'm not as much on my game today. Here's what I'm capable of. And like, here's where maybe like one person needs to pick up the slack. Right. And we've seen that with team members, right? Because when you work with people in general, go through ups and downs. Like they are that's human. It's only natural. Right. And sometimes it's hard when you're watching the person that you love or a team member go through something that's very hard. And I think there's controlling what you can control, holding up the mirror and showing them like what they are capable of and what their potential is, reminding them of that constantly. Yeah. And then there's also just communicate with me. If you need to be out today, if you need to take a break, just tell me and I'll pick up where I need to pick up. But like, you can't just not tell me and then things don't get done. Yeah. So that was another thing as well. Yeah. Man, that's so good. I love that. Honestly, that's what helped. Yeah. That's what got us through it, because you never came across as nagging to me. Just so you know, I want you to know that. You never did. I appreciate that. You never did. You were always so encouraging. And what was actually really ironic is because you were so encouraging to me, it made me feel like, okay, I need to step up. Like, you are nothing but good. You bring all of the summer weather and I just bring all this winter weather. Aw, come on. And you just warm the ice around my heart. As a result of you loving me in that way and being so supportive, I mean, it is one of the things I'm so grateful for you. Like, I can't even put it into words. But seriously, like, that has been so helpful. I would also say that the transformation that happened in my heart over time, the more that you did that, was just a reminder of who I believe God called me to be. Yeah. Because there does become a point where I have to apply that same ... and now what framework to myself. Yeah. Like, we all have a decision to make. We can wallow in fear and shame and disappointment and lack of faith and doubt, or we can choose to create a compelling future for ourselves
to believe that while we are alive, there's a purpose for us being here.
Yeah.
And to find meaning and satisfaction and fulfillment and exercising everything we can do today to walk out that purpose.
Yeah.
And for me, that has given me so much more strength. And what's also cool is that I now don't have an identity that's built upon all of these other horcruxes that I've put my soul into. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I now have developed my own identity.
Yeah.
My own identity of who I believe I am. And I believe that comes with, and primarily comes from who I believe God has created me to be and what he says I am. And if I believe that I am a son of God, that I'm freely loved, I'm freely forgiven, I'm made righteous by my faith in Jesus Christ and what he did for me. And my confidence comes from the fact that I was created by God for him to serve other people that he has designed me to serve, then really all of the other thoughts and beliefs about what I can or cannot do just falls to the wayside.
Yeah.
So that strength and that identity that comes from seeing myself the way that God sees me takes away any sort of need to look at external success or results as a measure of how great or how bad I am, which is awesome. Not saying I'm perfect at it, because I am not. This is still something we're actively walking out, but man, has that created so much strength in me. It has reinvigorated my passion. It's reinvigorated my belief and my confidence. And I think it's taken some stress off of you too.
Yeah, absolutely. And not only from the tactical, like you are able to do what I need you to do,
right.
but there's also like being able to see you step into who I know you can be.
Yeah.
So.
And we're just getting started.
That's right.
Yeah. Anything else you want to add to that?
I don't think you get to the end and then that's it. Right. I will say, if I can be honest, that anytime you come up against a new edge,
100%.
like a new edge in business, there's always going to be a level of new uncertainty.
Yep.
And so I think at some point along the road to success, you're at multiple points, I should say, you're going to encounter some uncertainty of this new edge that you're on, which is going to rattle you.
100%.
And sometimes that will make you question who you are, your identity, what you're capable of, what your purpose is, etc. So I don't think this problem ever fully goes away.
No.
But what I will say is that you can get to such a place, and this is a place that I've been very blessed to see you get to, that you are walking in faith, you are moving with confidence, and you're just trusting that the direction that you're going is the direction that you're meant to be.
Yep.
And if you need to adapt, you'll adapt.
Right.
And so there's a level of confidence. There is a level of certainty, even if it's not complete certainty in the outcome, it's certainty in who you are that I've gotten to see.
Yeah.
Which has been cool.
Well,
so
I'm glad you're able to see that. And we were able to walk through that darkness to see the light on the other end.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that.
I love you.
I love you.
All right. How do you want to wrap this up?
Well, we hope that this serves you. And just know that if you're experiencing any of this, you are so not alone. You are not alone at all. But here's the benefit of it. Here's the beauty of all of it. No matter what you're going through, we are an example that if you continue to move forward and you continue to have faith and you continue to decide that between you and your partner, you're not going to give up on your hopes, your dreams, your calling in life, things can get better.
Yeah. And as a partner, if you can consistently remind them, the other partner, of their potential and control your actions and your attitude, you're in good shape.
That's right.
Yep.
Hopefully you enjoyed this. Until next time, remember, you don't have to choose between having a successful business or a wonderful, thriving relationship. You can have both.